Creating a chart in Excel, which is nothing other than a visual representation of numeric data, is surprisingly easy, and you can quickly embellish it with a variety of visual effects. And let's be clear, the term we use is chart. You might call it a graph, but officially and formally in Excel, we talk about charts. And we're about to create one with this set of data right here, starting in columns D through I. Before creating a chart, highlight the data that you want to show. And it must include some values, otherwise you'll have pretty much of an empty chart. If you do have totals next to your data, leave them off. Totals and details don't work so well together. Always include the row that you typically have on top of the data that describes each column, and the column that you typically have on the left side that describes each row. And if you're in a hurry, you can use a great keystroke shortcut combination, Alt F1. That's using the function key F1. Alt F1 immediately creates what we call a clustered column chart. These vertical columns, remind yourself, it's a column chart. And to be a little bit more specific, a clustered column chart. As soon as you see the chart, you might notice at the top of the screen, we've got a new ribbon, Chart Tools, with two contextual tabs, a Design tab, the more important of the two, and a Format tab. Format has a lot to do with fine-tuning of the visuals. Design has some important buttons on it that we'll see. And your eye is probably already attracted to these choices here. I'm sliding over these, not clicking, and we see lots of different variations here. It kind of makes you look like a pro in no time at all. That really stands out. How did you do that? Well, didn't take too long, did it? And there's a drop arrow here, and there's even more of them. So sometimes we'll gravitate toward these. I'll just pick one of these. The black one certainly stands out on the left. I'll click and move that. We can easily change to another one if we wish. To move a chart, you either click and drag any of its borders or just inside the border, move it to where you wish. If you'd like to resize it and keep that same ratio of height to width, point to one of the corner handles, they're called, or also some on the sides. I'm holding down the left mouse button, so I can make this chart narrower or wider, taller, and go anywhere I want. But if I hold down the Shift key, I'm making it bigger or smaller while retaining that same ratio of height to width. And sometimes you want to do that. Let go of the mouse first. If you want the boundaries of the chart to line up with the cell boundaries in the background, take one of these corner handles, hold down the Alt key, let go of the mouse first, and maybe do it from the opposite corner. And not truly necessary, but sometimes you might want to consider doing that. So an Alt drag causes the boundaries of the chart to match up with the cell boundaries in the background. And that's one of many different chart types, as we'll see in the next movie. Now, I've got some other data over here. I'm going to highlight this. If I want a chart on a separate sheet, the keystroke shortcut F11. Keep your eye on the sheet tabs at the bottom. We're currently on the Creating Sheets. We are currently looking at the sheet called Creating Charts in this workbook 07 Charting. As I press the function key F11, suddenly we're on a new sheet and there's a chart. Now we have the same features available with a Design tab, a Format tab, but we're not seeing our data. The advantage could be you're focused strictly on the chart. You're going to make some changes, change the appearance of it, that sort of thing. You're not looking at the data at all, and maybe you'll be printing this or displaying this by itself. I think there's probably a tendency to maybe have the chart next to the data. But either way, I'll go back to Creating Charts, and we've got our data here. A more standard way to create a chart by way of the menu system is, with the data highlighted, we go to the Insert tab in the ribbon. We could start with recommended charts, and I think this is a great button because when you click this, you get some ideas as to how your data could be displayed. Here are 4 examples. And as you see these two, you start to become familiar with some of the names that we see here. So we could pick one of these here. Maybe this one is going to look better. Try that. Looks good. Click OK. And there's a chart. And here too, we might want to resize it. It's all a question of how many of these charts do you want to have on the same sheet and where do you want to put them. So it's easy to create these. And there's another way to create a chart. When you highlight a list of data that includes numbers like this, what pops up in the lower right-hand corner? This Quick Analysis button. Click it. There's charts, and we see some choices here. And we can go down that path if we wanted to. And there's another way. As you become more familiar with these, you'll go to the Insert tab and pick the chart type that you know you want from the beginning. And there's more about chart types in the next movie. So this is an appealing feature. Keep in mind too, this idea, a chart is always in sync with the data. So on this chart here, this chart that's based on the data over in columns A and B, if the data somehow got recorded incorrectly, And this number for den here should have been 3 million instead of 2 million. I'm going to double click in cell B11 and change that initial 2 to be a 3. And as I press enter, you'll see this den bar to the right here get substantially wider. And there it is. So it's always in sync with the data. It's a good visual representation of the data. And in some cases, you'll see that this works even better when you're dealing with large amounts of data, although often charts are dealing with small amounts. So it's a great feature, relatively easy to use, and it's got tons of options. So anytime you want to display numerical information in a more graphical way, you will be using the chart feature.